Hello, everybody. Hey, y'all. Hey, happy, marvelous Monday. I hope that you all are doing extremely well. Welcome to my weekly live. I am Carissa Spann, the landlord and tenant expert. And today I am so sad to have to share another story. Today I'm talking about landlord fraud, how one landlord was sentenced to 17 years of prison for discrimination, unfair, unethical business practices. And so today I'm going to share some valuable tips to try to prevent you all from going down that same rabbit hole. This is what I do each and every Monday. I'm live on Facebook, I'm live on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you have not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please find me on YouTube at Landlord Lyfe. I'm live every Monday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And each week, I'm sharing different topics, information to help landlords, tenants, and the entire rental community. And again, hello and welcome. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I am super excited to have you join me today. And if you're watching the replay, thank you so much. So today I'm going to unpack a lot of information because I think that when we can learn from the mistakes and listen to the stories or learn of stories about others, for those of you who are housing providers, your landlords, your property managers, I want you to know what not to do. And unfortunately, we are going to start to see a lot more cases that are going to be filed against landlords by tenants. And so my goal, my mission is very clear, and that is to provide information to make sure that it's clear, it's relevant, right? It's in-time information I'm sharing. And if you have questions, by all means, please let me know. Please drop your comment, your question, your remark, or observation in the comment section. And also let me know where you're tuning in from. What is your city or state? What is your geographical location? Let me know that, because sometimes I like to provide information depending on my viewers, information that is for your jurisdiction. And again, my mission is to provide information to make sure that it's clear. And so if I'm going too fast, slow me down. I do not have a problem at answering your questions while I'm live and online. So who is this information for? It's for landlords. It's for current landlords, for anyone who may be thinking about becoming a landlord. If you are a tenant, if you are a housing professional, anybody in the residential rental community, that's who this information is for. All right. I do want to put this disclaimer up. Information that I share is not legal advice. Sometimes I'll get questions. People will ask, well, Carissa, are you an attorney? I am not an attorney. I'm a housing professional. I'm a property management educator. So information that I share is going to be the industry's best tips and practices. I will always recommend, if you have legal questions that I am not able to answer, please reach out to a reputable landlord and tenant attorney in your jurisdiction who may be able to answer those questions or should be able to answer those questions for you. All right, so the discussion today is all about landlord fraud, how this one landlord, unfortunately, made a terrible mistake. Well, I won't say there were a lot of mistakes that they made. And when I looked at the story, I read the article, a lot of that was intentional, right? And so here's what I do know about people when mistakes happen. People do things for two reasons, either because they don't know or because they don't care. And in this situation, seemingly doesn't, I just can't wrap my mind around any other thought other than this guy just did not care, because his behavior was intentional. So I'm going to get into it in a little bit. I just want to say thank you again for those of you who are tuning in. I'm going to get right into it because this story, it hit home for some of my colleagues. We had a conversation about this just earlier today. It hit home because they're very familiar with this story. It is not in my specific area, but it's not too far from the area that I do serve. So again, this landlord, unfortunately, he will have to serve, or he has been sentenced to 17 years of prison time. Why? Because of discrimination. This landlord discriminated against tenants, which led to fraud, harassment. He harassed his tenants. And because of that, he received a lengthy prison sentence. All right, so during this session, I'm going to break it all the way down for you. And I hope that at the end of the day, that this is a wake-up call for some of you who are not familiar with ethical business practices. If you're running a rental property business, there is a legal way and there's an illegal way to handle your rental business. And so this story, as I break it down, I want you to listen to and hear some of the things that happen. But I'm going to do 3 things out of this segment today. All right. I'm going to educate you. I'm going to empower you. And then I'm also going to engage you. So I'm going to share some information. All right. I want you to make better decisions for those of you who may be self-managing, or maybe you're thinking about starting a property management business. One of the things that I will say, let me park here for a minute. One of the things that I will say about property management, in many cases, it is a thankless job. It is a really rewarding industry. It's a rewarding career. I have been in this industry for 20 plus years, working in various roles and capacities. I enjoy helping people grow and excel. But sometimes, although it can be rewarding, it can be thankless, and you can never forget why you started. And so for those of you who are thinking about, I know that I have a lot of investors that are going to tune into this because I talked to a group earlier. For investors who are getting into the landscape, who's buying rental property, who want to rent, especially to those who are in affordable housing communities, there are laws in place which governs how you must run and operate your rental business. It doesn't matter where it is in the United States. Fair housing laws came into play in 1968. Now, the segment today, I'm not going to do a deep dive into the fair housing laws. I'll do that in another segment. But this segment does touch on fair housing laws because this guy, he violated some laws, right? And so when you are managing property, whether it's for yourself or someone else, you must always know and understand what the laws are. I know that sometimes, remember I said that this job can be thankless, right? Sometimes you won't get a pat on the back. Sometimes you won't get a thank you. Sometimes people may not appreciate you, but it is a business. The one thing that I will say is to never wear your feelings on your sleeve. And so if you're operating a business, please don't get caught up if a tenant don't appreciate you or don't respect you. Yes, we always want those things, right? But let's just be honest and let's just be real. When it comes to human nature, everybody don't agree. Everybody will not always agree. Everybody don't come from the same background. Your level of education may not be the same. You may come from different walks of life. And so the variances that you will face in property management can make or break whether or not you stand strong in what you think or you desire you want to do, which is either operate a rental property business, manage it, or whatever. So never wear your feelings on your sleeve. So I just wanted to put that in a way. So I'm going to educate you. I'm going to empower you, and I want to engage you. I want to engage you by asking questions. Let me have your feedback. And if you have questions, drop it in the comment section, and I will definitely respond to it. All right, so now let me explain what this lawsuit is all about. I'm going to share some tips today for landlords. I'm going to share some tips for tenants. This is what I enjoy doing each and every week. It costs nothing but your time to show up. But I promise that if you are operating a rental property business in an unethical way, it's going to cost you a lot more than just your time. All right, so here are just a few things about this lawsuit. We're talking about landlord fraud, how this one landlord was sentenced to 17 years in prison. Can you imagine starting a business and then you go to jail because of something that you've done wrong in your business. Bad business practice. That's what I'm hoping to prevent. So this landlord was greedy. Okay. He discriminated against tenants. That led to fraud. He harassed his tenants. Now, here's where it got a little sketchy for me, because I wasn't sure why or how, but then again, I stopped trying to figure things out. But he became so comfortable with running his business the way that he did that he started scamming vulnerable tenants. He targeted low income tenants. He took their money, and he neglected to make repairs in the rental property. That is a big no-no. And I know that some landlords, some owners have done that for a long time. They've done it because they've been allowed to do it. They have gotten away with it. And so to me, it sent a message to me to say that clearly that this guy had been so comfortable doing it that it was just like second nature, right? But on top of that, on top of him scamming vulnerable tenants, he received fraudulent rent relief. So you remember back when COVID first hit back in 2018, 2019 range, right? There were a lot of people applying for rent relief to help them with their businesses. And so he received a lot of money through rent relief, through that COVID money. So, but he didn't do it the right way. He requested money. He pretended to be tenants. He wrote letters or whatever he did. He fraudulently did things as if he was a tenant seeking assistance. So he ended up getting a lot of money by forging tenant signatures. And not only that, but the worst part is this. He received money for tenants who were delinquent on the rent. So let me just back up a little bit. So with the COVID relief money, tenants who were not able to pay their rent, the government offered assistance to landlords. They would say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, we understand that you have a tenant who's not able to pay their rent. And so there were some tenants who had not paid rent for like 3, 6, 9, 12 plus more months, right? So they had gone through a period of not paying rent. Landlords were able to get assistance from the government. And so that's what he did. He got money from the government on behalf of delinquent tenants, right? So he got money for these tenants, and he still evicted them. So he falsified documents. He forged their signatures. He received money on their behalf, and then he still ended up evicting these tenants. But wait, there's more. I see your comments coming in. I'm going to come to you in one moment. Thank you so much for tuning in. He was also found guilty of racial harassment. He racially abused tenants. He violated their rights. He violated fair housing laws. And on top of that, he issued threats to the tenants. Not just one, but multiple tenants. So in this situation, was justice served? Do I believe justice was served? Absolutely. 17 years? Absolutely. He harassed the tenants. He took the rent payment. He didn't make the repairs. He intentionally discriminated multiple times. Yes, justice was served in this case. This landlord's action definitely violated federal laws. And his punishment, do I think it's enough? I will say this. I think that this is a wake-up call. I've said it earlier, and I'll say it again. We are going to see a lot more cases filed against owners. So please make sure, if the information that I'm sharing with you is helpful, if it is not applicable to you, please share it with someone else, because I want others to hear the stories that are now unfolding. There are a lot of cases that are in the courts throughout the United States. And so every week, unfortunately, as I receive this information, as I learn of these current events, I am going to definitely share it with you. But out of this lawsuit here, there are some lessons for tenants, because tenants, and one of the things that I always say is that tenants should always know and understand what their rights are. Learn how to protect yourself as a tenant from unethical landlords. All right, so I'm going to give some tips for landlords, but let me go to my comment section. Hello, Patricia. Thank you so much for tuning in from that YouTube channel. You said there are a lot of landlords out here that need to be put in prison for doing the same thing, because I got one that is doing the same thing right now. That is unfortunate, but here's the thing, Patricia. As I just stated a few seconds ago, as a tenant, you do have rights. And landlords will now begin to understand how important it is, not only for them to know the law, not only is it important to understand the law, but to adhere to the law. I had this one young lady I was working with a few years back, and I shared this. She did give me consent to share it. She was so frustrated with managing her rental property. She emphatically stated, Carissa, if I can burn my house down with the renters inside, I would. I know that's harsh. I know that it's extreme. I definitely don't support that, but I understood her frustration. Let me say this to you as a property owner, as a property manager. Yes, you may have days that it's frustrating. Yes, you may have days where, like this one young lady who felt like she wanted to burn her house down, right? You may have those days where your feelings and your emotions are tied up, tangled up in your rental property business because things are not working out the way that you anticipated. But I promise you that if you run your business like a business and you don't allow your emotions to be worn on your sleeve, and you're not responding in a way that is not professional, there's a better way to do things, right? So when you have those type of situations, if it's too much for you, then maybe seek advice from somebody else. But let me just give you some tips here as a landlord, because I want you to understand how important it is to do things differently, because I don't want to have to share a story or a situation because you've gone through some things and gotten yourself in some trouble. So here are my tips for landlords, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to give tips for tenants. So for landlords, I have 5 tips for you on today. The first is, please make sure that you treat all tenants with respect. And I know that just kind of seemed like the right thing to do, but you want to always uphold professionalism. You want to make sure that you treat tenants with dignity, with respect, regardless of their background, regardless of their financial situation. You want to always make sure that you maintain that property in a way that it meets all health, safety, and housing codes, because renting property that is uninhabitable is not only unethical, but it is definitely illegal. You want to make sure that you are transparent in your agreements. So that means you want to communicate clearly what the terms of the lease are. You want to honor any commitment that you make to your tenants, such as repairs or long-term tenancy options. Don't say one thing and do something different. Say what you mean and mean what you say, and always stick to that agreement. Here are 2 more tips for landlords on today. You want to avoid discriminatory practices. Do not, under any circumstance, engage in any behavior that targets tenants based on protected fair housing classes such as race, ethnicity, or other protected characteristics. Because at the end of the day, discrimination can lead to severe legal consequences. And the story that I'm sharing with you today is about a landlord who is serving 17 years in prison because he didn't listen to the free advice that I give you all every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Maybe if he would have tuned in, he could have heard me tell him this. I don't know, but all I am telling you is that you're here today, you're getting this information. You always want to make sure that you seek legal advice on all matters, not just ethical matters, but seek legal advice on all matters as it pertains to your rental property business. Why is that important? It's important because sometimes when you consult with a legal professional or a housing expert, this sometimes can ensure that your practices are aligned with laws and that you're doing things in an ethical way. All right, so let me come to your comments, and then I'm going to give some tips for tenants. Patricia, you said I got pictures and text messages from him on my phone and printed them off for court in January. That's good because it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. You always want to document everything. So good job, Patricia. Hi, Crystal. Thank you so much for tuning in from the YouTube channel. You said, I just went down the rabbit hole learning my rights. I filed against my apartment manager and regional manager. Thank you for the education you offer and compassion for the victims. Absolutely. Listen, I really do have a heart for what I do. And although I'm a housing professional, I'm a housing provider, I'm a property management educator, I have a heart for people in general. So good job. And thank you so much for tuning in. Let me share my tips for tenants on today, because I want you to see the importance of not just showing up but getting this information on today. All right. So as a tenant, before you move into a rental property, please always check the conditions before you move in. Here's why that's important. I've had tenants who have come out to look at the rental property. When it was time to sign the lease, I always do a move-in inspection. I do the move-in inspection with the tenant. I don't just give them the keys and say, hey, you go in, let me know what you see and come back. I don't do that because not only am I a licensed property manager, I'm also a housing inspector. And because my eyes are trained to see things sometimes that others may not see, I don't expect for tenants to be able to recognize an issue that their eyes are not trained to see. And I would not want to hold them accountable for something that was pre-existing before they moved in. That would be unfair to them. This is why I tell tenants, do the housing inspection before you move in with the property manager. And if you are a property manager or an owner, I strongly recommend conducting that move-in inspection with your tenant. Because as a tenant, when you get those keys, you sign the lease, and if you don't say something, you are accepting the property the way that it is. Even if you don't know that there is something pre-existing, you have no way of knowing. So it's always good to do that inspection before you move in. All right. You want to read the lease agreement carefully. Please never, ever sign a lease that you have not carefully read. Make sure that if you have questions, as a matter of fact, here's what I will say. Review the lease before the day you're supposed to sign it. Highlight it, ask questions, write your questions down if there's something in the rental lease that you don't understand. So for instance, maybe there's a paragraph about repairs, right? And you're expecting the landlord to make all repairs, but the lease says that you're responsible for repairs. You're responsible for repairs up to $1,500. That could mean that if there's anything wrong, you have to come out of your pocket and pay up to that level, right? So maybe you didn't understand that. You moved into the property, something happened. You contact the landlord to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, my pipe burst or my toilet overflowed and my garbage disposal is backing up and my refrigerator won't turn on or whatever, right? So the landlord says, well, according to the lease, you're supposed to cover the repairs up to $1,500. And maybe it's like now it's the holiday season. Sometimes people just don't have that extra money, right? And if you sign that agreement saying that you're going to pay for any and all repairs up to $1,500 before the landlord steps in, that means you're responsible for those repairs. And so ask questions, look over the entire lease before you sign it. And if you have any questions, ask the landlord, can you explain what paragraph 7 is saying? Can you clearly articulate what paragraph 13B is about, right? You want to understand all of it. And so just have a conversation with your landlord. All right, let me go back to my tips. Malik, is it legal to make tenants pay for repairs in DC? It is legal if it is in writing. Some things, for instance, I have lease agreements if in my rental lease agreement. And let me just say that there is not one blanket lease that all landlords use. So what I use, somebody else may not use, and another landlord may use something that I don't use. But in my rental lease agreements, Malik, I will have tenants to pay for damage, right? I will have tenants to pay, for instance, infestation. Let me explain what infestation is according to my rental lease agreement. I'm looking to see. I don't have a lease. I don't think I have printed leases anymore. My lease packages are at least 61 pages long. No exaggeration. So infestation is defined as 2 or more. Okay. So in a situation where there's infestation in the property, and let's say it's bed bugs, Malik. Bed bugs is not something that's cheap to get rid of. Sometimes it may take multiple treatments, and sometimes a bed bug treatment might be $1,500. It just depends on which pest control company is being used and the extent of the service and the type of service, if it's a heat or chemical. But if there's infestation, here's why tenants will pay for it who sign my lease, is because in the lease it says that if you see a bug, a rodent, or anything of the sort, to let me know within 5 days. Okay. If I'm not notified, they are responsible for infestation. So remember, I said infestation by definition is defined as 2 or more, right? So in a situation where maybe the tenant had a visitor, they had guests to come over for the holiday season, they didn't realize that whoever came to visit had bed bugs in their bag, right? Left bed bugs in the rental property. And so now it becomes so bad to the point where it's not just in that one area, but it's in every room of that rental home, right? So if they do not notify me within 5 days, they are responsible for whatever the cost is. But what I will do is I'll make sure the repairs are completed. I'll have a conversation with the tenant. I'm going to follow it with a letter and that paragraph of the lease that lets them know and remind them what they are supposed to do in accordance to the agreement that we both signed, because it is a contract. And then I'm going to follow up with the cost, whether it's for repairs or pest control. So yes, I know that was a long answer, but Malik, it is legal for landlords to charge tenants for repairs. Now, I would strongly recommend, like I said, to look at the terms of that rental lease agreement so that you'll fully understand what is being asked of you, because sometimes landlords, and not all landlords are created the same, right? But sometimes landlords will add extra things that are not in the lease. So that's why it's important for you to review the lease, to understand it in the event that things come up. And things will come up, right? As long as you live in a property, things will happen, right? Sometimes people may forget what is in the lease. So always make sure you keep a record, you keep a copy of that lease, go back to it, review it. And if you have questions, ask that landlord to explain it. All right, so let me share more tips that I have for you as a tenant. Please keep those comments and questions coming in. I'm coming back to you. All right, so let's see here. You want to know what the eviction laws are. And it doesn't matter where you're located, anywhere in the United States, know what the eviction laws are in your jurisdiction. As a tenant, please know and understand that landlords cannot just walk into your rental property and put your things out unless you have gone to court or unless something has happened and they can legally do so. But other than that, please know what the laws are. In most jurisdictions, the landlord has to take you to court, and that's what the judge will do. The judge will give that landlord or the owner a judgment, an eviction, a writ. They will go through the legal process for the court to say, well, yes, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, you can move forward with your request to evict your tenant. You also want to document any type of harassments or threats that's been made by that landlord. Okay, so these are just tips for tenants, because if a landlord is behaving inappropriately, you want to make sure that you keep a record of incidents. You want to make sure it includes the dates, times. You want to be detailed. And then if you have a situation that seems to be getting out of hand, I would strongly recommend to go ahead and seek legal help, because the one thing that you don't want to do is allow situations to happen and to go on and it not be corrected. All right, so let me come back to my comments here. And thank you for your questions. Malik, is it possible to get one of your blank leasing agreements? Malik, I don't have a blank lease, but what I can do is if you email me, I can send you the link. So I use a property management software. So my lease agreements are not physical. They're online now. So pretty much everything that I do is streamlined. I don't do any paper lease. I don't do paper application. Everything is online. Let me give you my email address. If you email me, I'll send you the link. Patricia, can a landlord force you to use a furnace when they tell you not to use an electric heater because the house is not up to code? Good question. Here is what I will say. I have a young lady who's going through a situation where her furnace may be faulty. The landlord does not have the money to make the repairs. So the tenant has been using electric heaters. And to the landlord, in the landlord's eyes, the landlord see that as an electrical hazard. Here's what I will say, Patricia. Contact if you're in a jurisdiction that has maybe like a housing code office, like Department of Building, Department of Inspections, or something like that, contact them, let them come out, take a look at the situation, and they are going to tell the landlord what's definitely necessary. But can the landlord force you to use either way? I don't know if it's in the lease that you can't use electric heaters. So I can't say either way how the situation can or can't go, because one of the things that I always say is look at the lease, what's in writing. If it is in writing that you cannot use electric heaters, then you should not be using electric heaters. But I don't know what your lease says. So take a look at the lease. And if there's some sort of housing code issue, there's some issues with that furnace, go ahead and contact. And that's especially if the landlord is not trying to make the repairs. Contact a government agency, a housing office, to have an inspector to come out and take a look at it, because the furnace should be working. So that is the best way that I can answer that, because I don't know what is in your lease. So let me share my email address. It is going to be info. I'm going to put it up on the screen, but my email address is going to be there at the bottom of the screen there. info@landlordlyfe.com. That is my email address. Who was that just asked me for the lease? Malik. Email me and I'll send you that link. All right, so I shared tips for landlords. I shared tips for tenants. I hope that this was helpful today. I shared how this one landlord was sentenced to 17 years in prison because of his unethical business practices. He discriminated. He received money fraudulently. He falsified documents. He harassed his tenants. He violated fair housing laws. And so, in addition to jail time, he was fined, right? And so, that's just bad. That's a bad business practice. My goal is to try to prevent many of you who are housing providers, landlords, property managers from going down this rabbit hole. And for those of you who are tenants, my goal is to help you to understand that you do have rights. I'm here each and every Monday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please find me on YouTube at Landlord Lyfe. If you have questions when I'm not live, which is every Monday, that is my email address there. Please feel free to email me. I do respond to comments on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in on LinkedIn, Jonathan. Okay, Patricia, you said it is not in the lease. Okay, so with that being the case, then I don't know that your landlord can force you to do anything either way. Even if it was in the lease, they could strongly recommend that you adhere to the lease. But because it's not in the lease, I would recommend if you're in an area where you have maybe like a tenant or tenant advocate or a housing advocate who you can speak to, Patricia, definitely reach out to them. You can contact, like I said, the inspections office if there's one in your jurisdiction, if the furnace is not working. But the landlord should not be forcefully trying to get you to do anything, because there is nothing by law that allows a landlord to force you, right? They can say, for instance, if you are violating the lease, which it doesn't seem like you are because it's not in the lease. So if there's no lease violation, let me just say, even if it is a lease violation, landlords by law cannot harass you. And so if you feel like it's harassment, seek legal advice. Okay. That's the best thing that I can tell you to do, because I don't want you to be in a situation that it's uncomfortable, right? But if you're in an area and it's winter time, it's cold in a lot of places. Like I'm in DC, right? And it was like 33 degrees today. The temperature is dropping. And so you have to do what you have to do to heat your home. And sometimes people don't understand that. Sometimes people don't have a heart. They don't care, right? They just don't want you to use maybe an electric heater because it could be, for instance, an older house. Whereas if you're using too much current, it may overload the circuit, and maybe they're concerned that there is going to be an electrical fire, right? I don't know what the mindset is of your landlord that would try to force you to not use the electric heater. But if the furnace is not working, that's a problem. Know and understand that if you're using an electrical heater, please make sure that if you must use it, try to use a surge protector. In the event that it overheats, that surge protector is going to shut it down before it becomes an electrical fire. Because in some of those older homes or in properties where the outlets are not properly grounded, electrical hazards will happen. And this is the time of the year when those things happen, because heaters are plugged up and the other devices are plugged up on that circuit. So just make sure that you are careful if you have to use that electric heater. But like I said, if that furnace is not working properly, you want to make sure that you can speak to someone who can help you with that. All right. So I hope that this information was helpful today. I did share a lot in a short period of time, but I wanted to jump on and share this information because this was a critical mistake that is sending a message to landlords all throughout the United States. For anybody who's paying attention, please like, please tag, please share this information with others. Please continue to show up every Monday. Each week is a different topic. If you have information that you would like for me to discuss or to cover, Please email me if you have subject matters, landlord and tenant related, that I'm able to discuss while I'm live and online. Please do let me know. Again, that is my email address right there, info@Landlord Lyfe. Okay, Patricia, you said he gave me a 7-page lease and my neighbor a 3-page lease and tried to force me out here the code and at Christmas. That is definitely not good. So that speaks to the behavior of that business practice of that landlord. I'm not sure why there's a discrepancy there, but it seems like there could be something that's off. So Patricia, please make sure that you speak to a housing advocate, tenant advocate agency that can help you with this situation with your landlord. And please remember that your landlord must take you to court. They can't just come in and put you out, right? So you always have options. You also have rights. All right. Are there any other questions I'm able to answer? Anything that you want to share before I log off? I have a few minutes left. I don't mind pausing to take some questions if you have any. So please let me know. I did share a lot today. And again, thank you so much for joining me. This is what I do each and every week. Don't forget, please make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. At YouTube, you can find me at Landlord Lyfe. That's it at the bottom of the screen there. Please subscribe. Smash that subscribe button so that you'll be the first to know when I'm live and online. You want to definitely do that. Tune in weekly for more tips, for more insights, for more information and conversations that will help the entire rental community. My time is up and I absolutely thank you for yours. Patricia, you said I did talk to someone about this. Okay, good. And Patricia, if you don't mind, please keep me in the loop. You can always email me. Let me know the outcome. Let me know the results. Okay. If you would do that, I would be greatly appreciative of that. And again, thank you all so much. For those of you who are celebrating the holidays, you celebrate Christmas, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you. I look forward to seeing you all right here, Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye for now.